All right, let's dive right in. We're going to tackle a pretty wild idea today, that our whole reaction to AI, that mix of wonder and confusion, and maybe even a little bit of fear, it's not new. Not at all. In fact, to really get a handle on the future of AI, we're actually going to look back, way back, like 400 years, and find a perfect mirror in the past. I mean, this is the question, right? It's on everyone's mind. You chat with one of these new large language models, and the way it talks back, it just feels so fluent. It's uncanny. It can almost feel alive. And when we see that kind of strange new behavior, our brains immediately leap to these huge concepts: consciousness, sentience, maybe even the end of the world. But what if we're asking the completely wrong question?
This quote right here, this is the key to everything we're talking about today. The idea is that our feeling of magic or mystery around some new tech, it comes from a very specific kind of amnesia. We see the amazing final product, but we've completely lost track of the messy, step-by-step, very human process that got us there. And when that chain of development gets lost, well, our brains have to fill in the gaps. So we invent myths.
So to see how this works, let's just step away from AI for a minute and travel back in time. We're going to the 1600s, and we're going to look at this incredibly powerful tool that wasn't invented because someone wanted to understand the universe. Nope, it was born out of a desperate, practical need to solve a huge problem.
Okay, so put yourself in the shoes of an astronomer or a ship's navigator back then. Your life, your entire crew, all that valuable cargo, it all depends on you doing incredibly complex math. You're multiplying and dividing these giant numbers by hand over and over. The chance for one tiny human error is massive, and the stakes couldn't be higher. This wasn't some fun math problem, this was survival.
And so a solution was born: the logarithm. Now, don't let the words scare you off. At its core, a logarithm was just this absolutely brilliant trick. Think of it like a cheat sheet. It was a pre-computed table that let you take a hideously difficult multiplication problem and turn it into a much simpler addition problem. It was pure, practical problem solving.
And this just shows you how huge of a breakthrough it was. On one side, you've got the old way, scratching out these long, tedious calculations, super easy to make a mistake. And on the other side, the new way, you just look up two numbers in a book, add them together, and boom, you have your answer. It was fast, it was reliable, and it literally changed the world of computation overnight.
But here's the part that is just mind-blowing. The tool itself, the natural logarithm, was invented and used every single day for over 100 years before the fundamental mathematical constant that makes it all work, the number e, was even properly identified and understood. Just think about that for a second. They were using the tool, they were trusting it, they were building the modern world with it, all without fully grasping the deep theory behind why it worked. The utility came first, way before the full explanation.
So this brings us to this really crucial pattern in how we as humans innovate. As we get better and better at using our tools, we start to, we outsource our thinking to them. And after a while, we don't just forget the old way of doing things. We actually forget the mental muscles, the very way of thinking that the old tools made us use.
You could almost think of it like a program that civilization just keeps running, over and over again. It starts with a problem that needs fixing. Then a new tool gets invented to solve it. Pretty soon, that tool becomes so common that we don't even think about how it works anymore. It's just an abstraction. Then we forget the original mental heavy lifting it replaced. And finally, standing on top of that new higher level, we start building the next new thing.
We don't even have to look that far back. The engineers who sent people to the moon, they used slide rules. That's basically a physical analog computer for doing logarithms. And using one gave them this physical gut intuition for how numbers relate to each other. Or what about old RPN calculators? They forced engineers to think in terms of a stack, to really internalize the order of operations. These weren't just gadgets, they were whole mental frameworks that are now almost completely gone, just compressed away into the software we all use.
And look, this is actually a necessary part of progress, right? You have to forget the ladder to get any work done on the roof. This whole process of abstraction, of cognitive outsourcing, it isn't a bad thing. It's basically a way for us to reallocate our memory. We let the computers handle the low-level stuff so our brains can focus on bigger problems. But it does come at a cost.
Okay, so now let's take that whole historical pattern, this cycle of invention, abstraction, and then forgetting, and let's hold it up like a mirror to what's happening right now with artificial intelligence.
This chart just makes the parallel so incredibly clear. Back then, the problem was hard math. The tool was logarithm tables. The output was knowing where your ship was. But because people forgot the gritty details, myths about divine geometry popped up. Today, the problem is making sense of insane amounts of data. The tool is a neural network. The output is fluent language, incredible art, complex behaviors. And because we can't see the billions of calculations happening under the hood, we invent new myths, sentience, magic, or disaster. It's the exact same pattern.
So here's the bottom line. Our brains don't see the messy, brute force math that's actually happening inside the black box. A modern AI model is the result of thousands of tiny little tweaks and billions of mathematical adjustments. But because we've lost that developmental chain, we can't see the process. So our brain just fills in the blank with the simplest possible story. It's magic.
And this leads us to what is maybe the most powerful idea from all of this. You know that old myth about the world resting on the back of a giant turtle and then its turtles all the way down? Well, the source of this new magic, both back then and right now, it isn't some alien or divine power. The turtles are us. The incredible power we're seeing is just our own ingenuity, compressed over centuries, accumulated, and then forgotten.
Now, this pattern of forgetting, it doesn't just apply to our gadgets and our software. It applies to how we understand our own culture and our history, and that's where things can get really serious.
You see, when we forget just how interconnected and collaborative human progress really is, it opens the door for these overly simplistic tribal stories. You know the ones, stories of us versus them. And those clean, simple stories are really appealing, but they're just not true. The reality of history isn't a bunch of separate straight lines. It's a deeply braided rope of cross-cultural influence. I mean, just take a look at modern math, the very foundation of our entire digital world. As you can see here, it's a tapestry woven from so many different threads. You've got fundamental concepts from Indian scholars, which were then picked up and built upon by incredible Arabic and Persian thinkers, all mixed together with the logic of Greek philosophy, and then later refined in Europe. It belongs to all of us. It's a global heritage. And we can get really specific here. The very word algebra, it comes from the work of the Persian mathematician Al-Khwarizmi. The numbers we use every day, the Arabic numerals, they actually started in India before being spread by Arabic scholars. A huge chunk of ancient Greek philosophy and science was saved for the West because it was painstakingly preserved and translated in places like Baghdad's House of Wisdom. History is a story of connection, not of isolation.
And this all leads to a really powerful conclusion. Getting our history right, being precise about who did what and where ideas came from, it's not just some boring academic thing. Precision is a weapon against bigotry because it completely shatters those false clean stories about one group's isolated genius or their supposed superiority. It reminds us that we are all standing on the shoulders of a global network of giants.
So what do we do about it? Well, the idea is we have to intentionally, every now and then, uncompress the stack of our own history. And this isn't about blaming people or getting stuck in the past. It's about restoring the credit, getting the perspective right, and reminding ourselves of the real, braided story of human progress so we can build a better future together. And that's the thought I want to leave you with. This cycle just keeps going. If we let ourselves forget the human grit and genius behind our current tools, everything from logarithms to AI, is it possible that future generations will look back at what we built and not see us at all? Will they just see the work of aliens or gods or magic? Well, the answer really depends on whether we commit to telling the complete, messy, braided story of how we got here. And that's a story worth remembering. Thanks for digging into this with me.